That's it recording now.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Great. Okie dokie. I can still hear people pinging in, so we'll maybe just give it another wee minute or so. But welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Tutor Assessor Connections. As we've got up here just now, you're welcome to have your camera on or off whilst we're going through the session today. If you could mute your mic whilst we've got our presenter speaking, that would be great, but feel free to unmute and stick some questions in when we come to the end of our chats today. For the meantime though, please do feel free to say hi in the chat with your name and your role and your delivering centre. These sessions are definitely designed for you to make connections and meet people, so it'd be great to hear where everyone's from. I can still hear people pinging in, so I'll just give it another little while and then we'll get started. Right, okay, well, we'll go for it from there, as I've not heard a ping for a wee while. So yeah, absolutely, as I said, contribute in a way that works for you. So if you want to just put questions in the chat whilst we go, or wait till the end when we have our Q&A and you can unmute and say them yourself. There's absolutely no silly questions, so please do feel free to ask whatever pops into your head that you think of throughout our presentations, and life totally happens. So yeah, if the doorbell goes, hopefully my cat won't intrude on today's session. All of that's totally cool. So yeah, before we get started, I thought I'd better introduce myself as someone new to SSERC. So my name's Laura and I started as SSERC's STEM Programmes Coordinator about 2 months ago now. So I'm going to be working on the Young STEM Leader programme for some of my time. Primarily with things like comms and social media. So if you tweet us, it'll probably be me at the other end of the tweets these days. And I'm going to be running events such as this one, working on running Young STEM Leader Week later in the year, and doing some exciting development work on some resources that we've got coming up as well. So that's all really exciting. I'm really pleased to be getting started in the role, and it's great to be doing things like this so that I can meet lots of you as well. So now I've introduced myself, I'd like to introduce this month's theme for Tutor Assessor Connections, which is learning for sustainability. So just a quick running order before we get going. I have already introduced myself, so we've got the first one ticked off. I'm going to chat a little bit about an intro to learning for sustainability, and then we're going to have some presentations from Martin McKenna from a kind of primary education setting, Fiona Harkess from secondary school, Fran Hutchinson, who will be presenting things from a science centre perspective, and Christina Sinclair from the Field Studies Council, who's been doing some fantastic outdoor learning as part of the Young STEM Leader programme. Once they've all done their presentations, we'll have a Q&A, so you can ask them any questions that you like. And if we've got time at the end, we're going to break out into a wee group discussion as well. So let's start out then. What is learning for sustainability? So I took this from, I think, the Scottish Government's website as a definition of what learning for sustainability is. It's an approach to life and learning which enables learners, educators, schools and their wider communities to build a socially just, sustainable and equitable society. An effective whole school and community approach to learning for sustainability weaves together global citizenship, sustainable development education and outdoor learning to create coherent, rewarding and transformative learning experiences. So there's definitely lots of different ways of learning that have been weaved into learning for sustainability, and I'm really excited that we're going to be hearing from lots of these different educational settings today. So it's an entitlement for all learners within the Curriculum for Excellence. It's embedded within the General Teaching Council of Scotland's Professional Standard for Practitioners, and it weaves in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They're central to the scheme as well. So Learning for Sustainability is included at every level of the Young STEM Leader programme. So at each level, Young STEM Leaders choose which themes of Learning for Sustainability to link to. In the Create badge and in the planning task, they plan out how it's going to link to Learning for Sustainability themes. So that's just a little introduction to Learning for Sustainability. I'm really excited now that we're going to be able to hear from our speakers, because Young STEM Leader programme can be a great opportunity to deliver Learning for Sustainability themes in such a unique and engaging way. And I'm really delighted that we're going to be able to hear from a range of different contributors who've worked in delivering the Young STEM Leader programme with the Learning for Sustainability themes in so many different educational settings. So I'm going to start out today by passing over to Martin McKenna, who is going to tell us about how he's incorporated Learning for Sustainability themes within the programme in a primary school setting. So if I just come out of this, Martin, would you like to share your screen?
Okay, no problem.
If I do that.
Is that coming up okay, Laura?
Yes, I can see that, Martin.
Okay. Well, thank you, Laura. So I'm just going to run through how we at Holy Cross have linked the sustainability themes in with the Young STEM Leader programme. So this is based around working on Young STEM Leader programme at Young STEM Leader 2. So within the programme notes that you will see when you're using the programme, and if you're not yet at that point, you will see that there's a very clear expectation that Learning for Sustainability is part and integrated into the programme. And a starting point for us to decide how to take that learning was to work with the children to use the Education Scotland's word cloud to look at what these themes are, because often, like Laura quite rightly did there and explained learning sustainability, it's making sure the children understood that as well. So we looked at what the word sustainability meant and how this can come under different headings and themes, and that was really our starting point for planning to incorporate that within the programme. So some examples, we actually in our own setting managed to look at how we could integrate that not just within the Create badge but across all 4 badges, Discover, Inspire and Lead. And here are some examples of that. So within the Create and Lead badge, we picked out the learning sustainability themes of sustainable energy and water use. We looked at global citizenship and waste reduction and recycling, and we took those themes from, worked with the children to plan and pick those from the word cloud. So when the Young STEM Leaders were creating their activity for a theme, we looked at the sustainability word cloud and the UN Sustainable Goals as well. And an example of that where we picked out water was a global goal that we decided to focus on. And this activity was leading the learning about water conservation across the school at assemblies, which linked into Goal 12. And wider activities that the children split off and went into work on was upcycling to create rain catchers from milk cartons, or they used other materials that they had around the school within classrooms to make feeders and planters as well, which went up around the school. So the Young STEM Leaders worked with other children to create that at a different stage, as well as trying it out in their own class. So that was one way in which they hit that sustainable theme. They also were whenever we are planning or doing an activity, we always try to focus on only using materials that are household items or recyclable items. And again, that's to promote obviously this idea of responsible consumption and the aspect that can be repeated or re-carried out in a different time or with different people using the same materials. So that again, that recycling aspect of sustainability coming through there as well. So that's just a kind of rule of thumb when we're coming up with ideas that we always say it has to be materials that can be reused or an activity that can be repeated rather than one-off things. So that was a way for us to embed that with the children through that. I'll just move on. So I think I'm frozen. Oh, there we go. We then looked on at how we could look at some different themes through the Inspire and the Lead badge, and we picked out the themes of value-based, skills for work and ethical issues from the word cloud as well. And we tackled that by having a look at the programme notes and really teasing out those themes that there's a lot of work around in Young STEM Leaders too, particularly about role models and how, as Young STEM Leaders, their children are role models. So they had quite a big passion for Greta Thunberg at the time and David Attenborough. So we homed in on that and linked the themes within the programme to the Young STEM Leader sections and the sustainability goals. And we looked at role models and inspiration. So that linked through looking at the skills, qualities and values and attitudes that those particular role model possesses. And then we linked that into developing young workforce using the Developing Young Workforce website and activities as well. So it was a really good link to link up with other curricular areas and drawing that all together. The Young STEM Leaders used their own research to self-evaluate their own skills using the self-evaluation tool within the programme as well. So that fit quite nicely with that. And they presented that information virtually through an assembly. So that was just one way in which they embedded it through the Inspire and Lead badge. Within the Discover badge, a lot of the programme is focusing on that stereotype and gender imbalance, and they linked that to looking at equality and fairness within the classroom and human rights. As our school is a UNICEF Rights, Respect and School Silver Awards, so that fit in with the children's work, and quite a number of the Young STEM Leaders were rights ambassadors as well as part of that steering group within the school. So they looked at using the pack and information, looked at stereotype within STEM, and they homed in specifically on women working in, particularly Scottish women, working in the STEM industry in Scotland. And through that, they investigated Scotland's place in the world in relation to STEM, and a particular focus on inventions in renewable energy and DIY in current sectors like pharmaceuticals and computing. And that linked into this work on how drugs and the pharmaceutical industry support the needs of people in society as well, which again linked back to the sustainability goals as well. So there's a lot of separate research that fed in to help them support with the programme there. So that, Laura, was just a couple of things there that we have worked on at Holy Cross to cover those learning sustainability themes by just really integrating it within the actual badges that come in as part of the programme.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Martin.
I'll just stop sharing now as well, sorry.
No, you're all good. Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's great to hear your experiences of how you've managed to embed it into the programme across all the badges is really fantastic. I think Jamie's saying in the chat there, maybe you could share your mapping so that others can access it as well, and that would be fantastic.
No problem. That's not a problem at all. I'll just send that to you, Laura, to get sent out.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I can share it after the session. That would be brilliant. No Okie dokie. So next up then, I will just do your little intro slide. We've got Fiona Harkess from St Andrews RC Secondary School in Glasgow, and she's going to be sharing her perspectives and experiences on using learning for sustainability in a secondary school setting. So yeah, Fiona, we've got your screen just popping up there.
Yeah, that's it up now. That's lovely. Okay, folks, thanks very much. Mine's is, I was working with level 4 non-formal, so S3 was about the appropriate age for that level. And my presentation is more specifics on how they carried out the requirements to achieve the badges at each stage, so what they actually done in terms of the project they developed and how they delivered it. So I'll just run through it 1 second just to get started. Okay, folks, I just hopefully this goes through quite smoothly. I'll just move it on from this first screen, okay? Obviously, as we're all kind of covering the same thing, there'll probably be a bit of crossover in what's already been said, so apologies for that, but obviously the themes remaining the same, so apologies if I'm repeating what's already been covered. Just wanted to start out with how I really led it with my class, was making them aware of how important learning for sustainability is, and even within the school setting and the wider national setting, it's defined as an international and national priority in education. Every school should have a whole school approach to learning for sustainability. I know it may not be fully embedded in all schools currently, but there is, from Education Scotland, from Higgios 4 that there should be within the school framework an approach for learning for sustainability. If you are working in this area with your young STEM leaders, then you're in a sense supporting that within the school. You're really helping the school out in that respect if you're doing something in terms of sustainability with them. What you'll find as well within your school, if they do have a learning for sustainability approach, that you may be able to tap into that with your young STEM leaders. There may already be things that are ongoing. Most schools will have something up and running. Some may be further down the road in terms of sustainability than others, but lots of schools will have a recycling programme. Maybe the idea of composting, waste food from the canteen area, etc. Maybe a litter awareness, litter pickup. Maybe reducing single-use plastics. There might be something already in the school that you could tap into with your young STEM leaders and use that as the sort of platform for them to reach the badges for their awards. When my recent young STEM leaders have done theirs, it was really the backdrop of COP26, so it made it very easy to integrate it into what we're doing. Obviously in high school, it's an extracurricular activity. I'm not quite sure how it works in a primary setting, but with high school, it's extracurricular, so it's done at lunchtime, after school, etc. So it's really addition to what they're doing in their normal day-to-day. So really, my first port of call was to get them started, to allow them to sort of think about the sustainability themes that they'd like to work with and try and gather some information and some resources that they would use. So it's always handy to have something they can go to. From my own kind of work within sustainability in the school, websites that I've found particularly useful, Keep Scotland Beautiful has got many resources and a really good starting point for young people and for staff as well, trying to find out more information. The Royal Society of Chemistry have got a full bank of lessons which could be adapted to young STEM leaders to then to take on as part of their delivery part of their award. Dynamic Earth have got a whole range of resources, WWF, Greenpeace, so there's a whole range of things out there that you can access or encourage them to access so that they have something to build on, some resources available to them. What I would say with that though is that there really is a whole lot of resources, so it's trying to narrow it down for them and make sure what they have is at a suitable level and that they're able to sort of use what's available in the best way they can and help them, support them in moving forward with their plan in their logbook. So just to kind of run through how they started, so I'm just going to start from create here. So they had to come up with a sustainability activity that meets the criteria for that element. So the desired audience, they decided what the aim was going to be, they identified appropriate resources. With their work with sustainability, they've kind of came through and thought about and realised what they have to do to be inspirational through their activity and through their actions, and what sort of motivational behaviour they need to display when they're carrying out their activity with their audience, and obviously with that consider their leadership skills. We tied that really all in round the activity that they were doing. When we decided what theme they wanted to do, and they were interested in learning or using greenhouse gases and fashion as their sustainability activity, we decided that the audience would be a P4 class or classes at our local primary school, and the resources they chose to do was develop a PowerPoint presentation to deliver and some activities to do on the day. So I'm just going to give you a very quick run through of the resources that is developed. I've kind of selected a few slides from their PowerPoint. I haven't put it all in, but just enough to give you the gist of what they had put together and what they felt was relevant and what they wanted to put forward to the young people when they're doing the activity, and also the pupil activities that they developed and they sourced from other areas that they could. So this is just a few slides. As I said, I've got a few slides from their PowerPoint presentation, and this is what they were delivering to the primary fours. So first of all, just giving them into sort of success criteria of what they were going to do today. Then they went on to kind of challenge them what they thought about climate change, what they'd heard, bearing in mind they're primary four, but most primary fours are pretty environmentally savvy now, so they had good answers and were very responsive to these questions. They were just doing more as interactive as they could with a group of kids and getting them to discuss a wee bit about what they understood about climate and with the contrast of what they mean about weather. So then they started to try and tease out some more knowledge from them. So what does a climate look like? And we went along the idea of there's 5 different types of climate. Can you identify them? So for example, they were shown this climate and to try and identify it, and then shown the other 4 and you know, trying to work out what type of climate does that represent. After that, they went on to talk to them about the greenhouse effects and explain what is meant by that, and link that to the greenhouse gases. That was going to be the theme of one of their activities. And you can see here, there's just a few slides explaining about the different greenhouse gases and the greenhouse effect. So the young STEM leaders went through all these and explained it to the group of P4s. And a wee bit about climate action, just to explain to them so what can be done, because obviously primary 4s can be a bit off-put when they're given all this negative information. So it was to kind of counterbalance it with some of the climate action, what we're doing to try and reduce this impact. So this is one of the activities that they done. They had these 4 different gases, and they had to sort they had different emitters, and they had to sort which one produced each gas. So an emission sorting activity, and this was sourced from Keep Scotland Beautiful website, and they've adapted it for their activity. And they had 4 different gases and a range of different emitters, and they had to try and work out which gas produced, which emitter produced which gas, and they've done it as a group activity. The next one that they done was the fast fashion. You can see here they'd produced these set of facts about fast fashion that went through with the primary 4s, just to give them a wee bit of understanding. And most of the primary 4s, when they see these logos, they recognise Primark, they recognise Boohoo, all these ones they're familiar with, but not necessarily with the idea of fast fashion and the impact it has on the environment. So it was quite good to give them something that they're maybe not quite as familiar with, and for a wee bit more understanding of the impact that was having. So the young STEM leaders then used this as an agree or disagree task. So they had all the primary 4s up on their feet, and they were giving them various statements, and they had to decide if they agree or disagree. And a lot of them around the sort of theme of recycling and reusing clothes, which young people at primary 4 are happy to do, but when you go through that idea again with high school kids, they're not quite so happy to do it. So it's maybe trying to get them at a younger age to understand the importance of recycling clothes and reusing clothes. So you can see there that was the idea of the questions that they had that they were asking them. And just to show you, this is the resources they were using. So you can see on the left there, there's pictures of the emitters, and the kids had little flashcards with the pictures on it, and they also had the 4 gases, and they just had to sort them into the correct column for each of the gases. Here's some pictures of the young STEM leaders on the day. So you can see I've got 6 S3 young STEM leaders, and it was 2 P4 classes. So there was about 40 or 50 primary 4s, probably closer to 50 primary 4s that they were working with there. And you can see them there presenting, doing their presentation. They were very good, very interactive, and really, really working on their leadership skills. That's them doing their card sort activity for the greenhouse gases. And you can see there they've got their 4 greenhouse gases, and they're trying to sort the different emitters into the correct ones. And there they're doing their fast fashion information, they're running through that. And you can see the kids up on their feet there deciding if they agree or disagree with the different statements that the young STEM leaders were making. And that's them there just at the end. You can see the group of them. It was a really good day, and they all enjoyed it, the young STEM leaders and the primary 4s. And just to finish off, just a wee bit about how my young STEM leaders have done entries into their logbook for it. So you can see here they were looking at who was going to influence them and what skills and knowledge they would use. And I think I've got one more here just about the different resources they would do, the plan to, when it would be, how long it would be, the different resources they would use. And I think that's me. Thank you, Laura.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Fiona. It's great to hear how your young STEM leaders really incorporated sustainability into all elements of the programme and kind of get some ideas of how it could be done at the high school kind of formal level. So next, a different educational setting again, we're going to move on to a science centre and hear from Fran Hutchinson, who is the Community Learning Officer there. I better give you your proper introduction though, Fran. There we are. So she's a Community Learning Officer at Dynamic Earth, and they are a partner in the Young STEM Leader Programme, and she's going to talk to us today about how they have created some learning for sustainability resources and some CLPL that they've got going on as well. So if I stop sharing my screen again, and I will pass over to Fran.
Great, thanks Laura. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Cool, is that working there? Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, so Laura's already introduced me, but yeah, I'm Fran, the Community Learning Officer at Dynamic Earth. Some of you may have been to visit with your classes or your families, but for those who haven't, this is a very brief rundown of who we are. So Dynamic Earth is an earth science centre focusing on the geological history of our planet, from the Big Bang through the evolution of different creatures all the way up to the present day and the environmental crises that face us today. We're also the proud new owners of a planetarium, so we can explore space as well as our home planet. I am part of the learning team, and it's our job to engage with schools and community groups to deliver curriculum-linked earth science workshops, which lends itself very well to learning for sustainability. So we offer a wide range of topics, from kind of tropical rainforests to natural disasters to space exploration, but we always aim to do this in an interdisciplinary way. So I'm going to bring up the Learning for Sustainability word cloud, which has been very popular so far. Yeah, there's things like outdoor learning, jumping out, tackling climate change, contact with nature, learners as leaders. These are all points that are covered in our content at Dynamic Earth, but they also make great focus areas for the Young STEM Leader goals, as Martin and Fiona have already pointed out. So I'm going to skip on to my next slide. So we focused a lot of our recent content in general at Dynamic Earth around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So broadly, the Goal 14, which is life below water, and Goal 15, life on land, as they quite helpfully kind of cover everything. More specifically, linking to the Young STEM Leaders programme, we've worked recently with a group of young leaders from a local high school. So they were part of a nurture group and kind of came out of their mainstream classes to engage in this programme. So we were trying to look at kind of maybe slightly more out of the box ways to engage them with the project. And we decided to base it around these two goals. So we were looking at climate change and its impacts on land and sea. Now, this particular group kind of, we started off very loosely with more kind of activities to look at confidence boosting and helping them to identify the skills that they had within themselves before, so that they kind of did the things without realizing that they were demonstrating what we were asking of them in terms of the Young STEM Leader project. So we framed it like this. So we talked about the kind of personal qualities that are needed or might be needed to tackle the climate crisis. So things like leadership skills, resilience, creative problem solving, teamwork. And I don't know if anyone's ever seen Taskmaster, but we ran a series of challenges with the young leaders that were very kind of Taskmaster style. And once they'd completed the challenges, you know, we'd kind of affirm with them, you showed really great teamwork skills there, or resilience or patience, and link that to the lead goal, and how they were showing these kind of amazing skills as leaders. We kind of branched out from climate into wider environmental issues, and the young leaders decided that they wanted to do a beach clean. Luckily, we were very close to the beach. This isn't a real picture of the beach that we were on. It was much greyer and colder than this one. But yeah, we felt that this was great because it was something that the young leaders had chosen that they wanted to focus on, but it also allowed opportunities to kind of widen out this subject and really help it become quite interdisciplinary. So we were thinking about where the litter on the beach came from, why it had ended up there, whether individuals were responsible for this, and the kind of social justice element of who deals with litter in our country and around the world. So there were some great ways to really broaden out this quite simple activity, which is, and kind of make it quite interdisciplinary, which is what Learning for Sustainability is all about. And we also just found that pretty much universally everybody loves a litter picker. So for anyone that would struggle to access the beach, the school playgrounds work for this kind of activity, local streets, even a visual litter survey from a window can lead to the same kind of conversations that we were able to draw out of the young leaders here. And obviously there's kind of the organisational element of this that the young leaders had to show, linking to the lead badge. And I think that was that for that. So I'll just skip ahead. So another activity that we found that was really helpful to kind of link into the Inspire badge was when we were thinking about people that inspired the young leaders. So this is where I'm going to plug some of our resources that Fiona's already very kindly mentioned. So we actually have an online handbook that's full of profiles of youth climate activists from around the world, which we use to kind of help the young leaders start their search in who they feel kind of inspires them. We designed this handbook with the intention of covering quite a wide range of activists, so people from every continent and a nice diverse range of people. Greta is featured for sure, but we wanted to acknowledge that there are a huge number of incredible young people that maybe are kind of working away in their part of the world that don't get kind of media coverage she does. Now, these profiles are quite text heavy, but they do also have links to the young activists' social media platforms, so that might be a nice way to encourage young leaders it's a kind of jumping off point for their research there. And in addition just to climate activists on Dynamic Earth Online, our kind of online resource portal, we've also got a really nice wide range of scientist profiles and people working in STEM, just to show a really, great range of people excelling in their area. And we've also currently got an LGBT and STEM exhibition, which is physically in Dynamic Earth, but it's also linking to online resources. And each profile also has kind of linked activities relating to the work of that person. So some really nice kind of resources there. And again, I can kind of pass on any resource links to Laura at the end of this session if anybody would like those. And finally, I'd also like to mention our CLPL modules that are on our website now. So these are all based around Sustainable Development Goals 14 and 15, so life below water and life on land that I mentioned earlier. But they have loads of kind of background that teachers and tutor assessors might find useful if you're specifically looking at climate and oceans content, which is really relevant to the Learning for Sustainability programme. They're designed to be completed over 4 weeks, but they can be done on demand in your own time, and they include activities and resources to carry out with your young leaders. So there's a lot of kind of pre-made resources right there for you. So please sign up for those if you feel that they would be helpful in kind of introducing Learning for Sustainability to your young STEM leader groups. That is my plug done. And there's just my email address there and the address for Dynamic Earth Online. If anyone wanted to check out the kind of range of resources there, but I can send those links along again at the end to Laura. And that is me done. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Fran. It's definitely an amazing suite of resources that Dynamic Earth have produced, and loads of really useful stuff if you're thinking about delivering learning for sustainability themes with your young leaders or any other thing. So Fran, I don't know if you want to stick links to those in the chat, but other than that, yes, I will share links to all the resources afterwards. And so we're going to go on to our last speaker of our session today. My screen has decided it doesn't want to share anymore. Here we go. Is it doing it? Thinking about it. There we go. So we're going to move on to our final speaker of the day today, Christina Sinclair, who's a tutor with the Field Studies Council. They've just completed some fantastic outdoor learning for the Young STEM Leader programme, and she's going to tell us a bit about that just now. So I will pass over to Christina.
Cool, thank you very much. Let me just start my point. Magic. Cool, I think that should be, everyone can see that now. Come on. Magic. Cool, yeah, thank you very much for having me. So, to give a bit of context, first of all, because I think we're quite guilty, not a lot of people have heard of us as an organisation. So yeah, my name's Christina, so I'm a tutor with the Field Studies Council, and I'm actually based at our centre in Millport on the West Coast. So the Field Studies Council is kind of one of the UK's leading environmental education charities. We're actually a little bit lonely up here at Millport as we're the only Scottish centre, but we have approximately 20 different centres around the UK delivering environmental education to groups of pretty much all age, but predominantly sort of focusing on primary and secondary school students, again, providing that sort of curriculum-linked education. For secondary schools, it's often field work. For primary schools, it's a little bit more sort of experiential. But it's all focused around getting people outdoors and enjoying the environment and learning about how to protect it. Now, before the pandemic, our kind of what we always did was we'd have groups coming to visit us and doing our courses kind of at our centres. But then, of course, after the pandemic, we had to adapt, and that's kind of how we got involved in the Young STEM Leader programme. So about this time last year, we were granted funding from YouthLink Scotland with the Youth Work COVID Education Recovery Fund. And we had a few the whole fund was created to try and re-engage students back with education again who had been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. And we had a few requirements for that funding. We had to work towards improving literacy and numeracy, just improving engagement with learning. And then we had the third one, so raising attainment through recognition of wider learning and achievement. So we were, this is when the Young STEM Leader programme kind of came into our lives. We thought it was a fantastic programme that we could use to raise attainment of the students that we were working with. So we've developed a partnership now with one local school that's kind of not too far from us. And through delivering the Young STEM Leader programme, we worked with a large variety of students, shall we say. We ended up delivering the non-formal level 4 award, as we were predominantly working with sort of S3, S4 students. We did have quite a range. In the end, we actually delivered our programme during the whichever number lockdown, the winter lockdown of 2021. So we would have been doing all of our learning outdoors anyway, but we might have had a little bit of access to indoor. But with the situation we found ourselves in, we were entirely outdoors from January to March, delivering our programme to a wide variety of students, quite a few different ages, additional needs and backgrounds. So I realise outdoor learning, particularly in January to March time, can feel a little bit daunting for some people. So what I've kind of focused this little presentation on is what activities we did and how we adapted them to suit sort of the different badges for the programme. I've not gone into all of the activities that we did, but I'll try and mention some of them. Of course, if anyone's got any questions about them, you can ask at the end. So our word cloud, as we've all seen, outdoor learning is, of course, the first one that everyone sees, when it comes to, thinking of outdoor learning and delivering the programme. But in actual fact, when we kind of sat down and looked at the word cloud and looked at the activities that we wanted to deliver, we actually realised that we were targeting all of these additional areas as well. And, we actually touched on quite a few of the other ones as well. It's just these were the ones that we were, really kind of focusing on. So there's a lot of there's a lot of variety we can get from an outdoor learning. And at the same time as, delivering the programme, we were trying to make things fun and engaging. I think we definitely took more of an approach like Fran, where we sort of snuck up learning for sustainability themes on them and got them thinking about the actual skills themselves, and then sort of demonstrated how they fit with that framework afterwards. Sorry, I appear to have There we go. So yeah, just to touch on some of these activities that we did and how we adapted them. So the first thing, or one of the really key ones that I found massively useful when I was kind of designing our programme was orienteering. So we wanted to have our sessions to be fun and engaging and active, and tick some of these requirements for each of the badges as well, and develop some just core STEM skills as well from the students. So orienteering is obviously a very classic outdoor learning session, but we've got a kind of system where we've adapted it to enable the students to kind of learn, content from any potential topic that you could really come up with. So the idea was we set this course up around the school grounds, and there's any number of points that the students have to use the map to navigate to. Now, at each of the points, rather than like a classic orienteering symbol or, I don't know, buried treasure, they would have an answer, like a board with an answer to a question on it. So each number on that course was a question. So they would all kind of be working in groups. They would be given, question number 7. But question number 7 would be on a little piece of laminated card. They would then have to use the map to navigate to point 7 on their map. And at that point would be the answer to the question. They would have to remember that answer, remember the content that was on that board, come back to me, the lead of the session, tell me the answer to that question, and if they got it correct, they would then be able to move on to the next one. So the possibilities are fairly endless with, what questions and answers you can have with the course. We chose to focus it on quite a number of the different requirements from the Discover and the Inspire badges. So we had sort of sustainability links in some of the questions, so you can see the answer to question 10 there. And I think the question would have been something along the lines of, how much wind or how much energy does a turbine produce? So that was the answer they had to remember. We also used this activity to inspire them with some Scottish STEM models, so some people that were working in STEM, and some potential career paths that were outside of the traditional sort of STEM, blinders that we tend to put on. So it's a fantastic activity that can be varied to suit really any topic, and they've got to remember it if they go on and move on to the next one. So it's a great way to it was a really great sort of first activity for us to set some of the key themes that we wanted. One of the key things that we put quite a lot of focus on is nature-based activities. So obviously we were outdoors the entire time, and we wanted them to really connect with their local spaces. And quite luckily, the school that we were working in, is in a fantastic area for outdoor learning. They have, a very large sort of play area. They have a large school ground, but then they're also quite close to a little woodland and a river. So we took advantage of that. And a lot of these nature-based activities sort of formed the foundations for the activities that we went on to for the lead badge. So some of the things that we did, we went sampling for invertebrates in the river, kind of like pond dipping essentially, but in a river rather than a pond. So we went sampling there for the organisms and managed to find quite a range of different things that the students were then able to identify and classify based, using guides. We had little digital microscopes that they could use that linked up with tablets so they could see everything much more closely. And it brought in loads of really interesting conversations about food chains and biodiversity, and the importance of those little organisms and where they fit into the bigger picture. And then it also was a really great time to talk about risk management. As you can see, the little bit of snow on the ground there in the photos, how to do things safely in a river, and let them take control of that was also a really beneficial experience. And then, of course, linking with other sustainability themes, sadly down by the river as well as on the beaches, lots of plastic, lots of litter, and other things that are impacting that area as well. So that brought in some really interesting conversations there. One kind of larger project that we worked on was some habitat creation. So we spent, I suppose, a bit of time looking at, what their area had to offer in terms of wildlife and nature and biodiversity. So I'm actually going to I suppose I'll go into the camera trapping bit next, and then that'll bring in the woodwork. So we set camera traps and looked for organisms that kind of lived in their local area. So we set those traps and checked them, after a week or so to see what was going by. We talked about looking for tracks and signs of different organisms, and kind of looked for evidence of those. If the weather had been nicer, we probably would have done a bit of bug hunting and things as well. But sadly, January, the bugs weren't out and about. So we left that until later on in the year. But all those little activities that we did, you know, trying to connect with nature and understand the biodiversity in their area, then led us on to doing the woodwork, you know, and led on to these really interesting conversations about the biodiversity crisis. And you know, a lot of the students actually were really impassioned by it and were quite concerned about it. So that's when we developed the woodwork activity. So they kind of got the option of what they wanted to create, whether it was bird boxes or you know, bug hotels, and we ended up creating a variety. But one of the main projects we worked on was these hedgehog boxes that you can see pictured. So that took a wee while for them to put together, but they started off with plain old planks of wood, and those hedgehog boxes are now out in their local area, and they were able to sort of plan the design and plan how it was all going to come together. And across all these activities, you know, these really helped us sort of achieve quite a few of the discover and inspire requirements, as well as a little bit of the create there as well. And then kind of what everything sort of the foundation that I was talking about with the nature-based activities, what that sort of led us on towards was their lead activity. Now, again, because we were doing this in the lockdown period, we didn't have many options we sadly couldn't go to, you know, another school for them to kind of, you know, discuss what they'd learned from a nature's perspective. And there was nobody else in the school. These were the key worker students, so there wasn't many people for them to lead to. So what we kind of ended up doing was they made a short film that kind of collated all the things that they learned from, you know, about biodiversity, about the biodiversity crisis, and about the species that kind of make up Scottish classic ecosystems. So they had to research a chosen animal and then plan the film using a storyboard, and they then had to film the piece using sort of stop motion filming and then edit it together. So this was perfect for us in terms of the create and the lead badge, and you can see our little model red squirrel there. I think they all really enjoyed doing it. The final little activity just to mention as well, which was actually quite useful for all 4 of the badges, particularly at the beginning, but actually worked out quite nicely for some lead as well, is some outdoor science challenges that we did. So we kind of designed some little problem solving experiments to target a couple of different branches of science. So for example, we made pop rockets, where they got Alka-Seltzer tablets, mixed it with a little bit of water, got it in like an old sort of film canister pot, gave it a shake, and the idea was they had to try and like make their rocket pop the highest. So they had to develop some STEM skills and look at equations and things to try and work out how to make that pop the highest. We also did the classic egg drop, so thinking about sort of engineering and transfers of energy. We looked at a freestanding tower design, so you know, bamboo sticks and plasticine put together, who can make the tallest freestanding tower. You've homemade compasses we looked at as well, so you can if you get paper clips, fold them out into a flat, you know, flat paper clip, and charge them with a magnet, almost just like a fridge magnet. Put it on a leaf that's floating in a bowl of water, and that will find magnetic north once it's charged up. So that was, it takes a little bit of time, but once it gets there, it's a great result. And then we also looked at density layers as well. So these were great, just again, for sort of broadening their perspective of STEM, getting them a better appreciation for, you know, how some of these themes linked in. And then we also used a variety of the activities in the YSL pack, including drawing stereotypes and household objects, and the mystery person descriptions. So we use a really quite a wide range of activities. Some of the other ones that I haven't kind of done slides on is a bit of bushcraft. So we did fire lighting and a bit of foraging, talked about food security and where food comes from. We did some further navigation as well, so looking at sort of grid references and geocaching, where they had to find different items there. So we did quite a variety of different things, but those sorts of themes of, you know, nature connectivity, looking after the environment, and of course these personal skills of team building were all kind of woven throughout. Some of the lessons I learned from delivering it entirely in an outdoor setting, gathering the evidence became quite challenging because, of course, you know, we were out and about all the time. They were also working towards another award, the Dynamic Youth Award, that had a requirement for them to fill in. So we had some time with them to do some written material where they could write statements about each other and kind of what they were doing. But it is challenging to to do that when the weather is poor and they're cold at the end of a session. So photos and videos became very, very useful. And the main thing I learned is that I would take a lot more video statements. So statements from each other, statements about the session, statements on what they were doing would have been very useful. And I ended up giving myself a big job of evidence collation right at the end, where maybe I should have factored that in a bit more throughout. But overall, the students found the sessions really, really enjoyable. They felt like they learned a lot about sustainability and, from a different perspective, and from quite an active perspective. So doing some of these sessions, and they also felt like they developed a lot of STEM skills as well. And what was also very lovely was seeing many of the positive relationships forming, because we ended up with a bit of a mishmash group of key worker students. Not everyone knew each other. So yeah, it definitely brought them together and gave them something really positive from, a difficult time. So yeah, that's me for just now. Yeah, I'll close and stop sharing now, I think. Somehow. Have I stopped now?
I think maybe I've taken control of presenting. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Christina. It's great to hear how you managed to use the Young STEM Leader programme in what sounds to be pretty challenging circumstances to get the young people through these lockdowns. So that sounds really fantastic. So we are going to move on now, if I can move my presentation on. There we go. There's all the speakers that we've heard from today from such different educational settings and backgrounds, all using learning for sustainability themes within the Young STEM Leader programme. So I'll just come out of this again for a minute so that we can all see everyone. And we've got some time for questions. Martin has sadly had to leave the call a little bit early, but we still have our other 3 speakers. So if anyone has any questions, now would be the time. Any questions out there? Did we have any in the chat? Just have a check now. Jamie's got his hands up.
I have.
Hello.
Thanks so much. Those presentations were so interesting, and I'd be really grateful if you could share any of those resources with us afterwards in the team. But I've got one question. So that you've all had such brilliant experience with learning for sustainability, and all have some brilliant resources. If you were to pick just one resource to support learning for sustainability, what would that resource be? And maybe you could share a link to it in the chat as well. I don't know who wants to go first. I'm asking everyone.
Not to put you on your toes at all.
Hi, I'll say, Jamie. So I found the Keep Scotland Beautiful website particularly helpful, and I've been working with Keep Scotland Beautiful doing their carbon literacy project as well. So I've spent a bit of time doing some of their other CLPL activities, and they've been really, there's a lot there that they have to use, both with your pupils, for your own development, and for pupils in the Young STEM Leaders setting as well. So I would definitely recommend them as a just personally. I mean, I know that there's a lot more, but if you want to go to one, that's maybe a good one to even just start with. I found them very good. They've got a lot of stuff there to use, and it also links with Eco School. Obviously, that's run as part of Keep Scotland Beautiful as well, so that they've got that there as well. So yeah, definitely recommend them for resources.
Fantastic. And Christina?
Yeah. So yeah, a little bit of a plug here, but something the FSC and John Muir Trust began or worked on kind of last year is a range of resources called STEM by Nature. So they ran a programme with a few other schools in the area, and then created these sort of documents which are just signposting all these different resources, FSC, John Muir Trust and beyond as well. So if anyone's quite interested in taking more of that sort of nature side of things as well, that's really, there's so many useful resources in amongst there. So I'll just put the overall link in the chat and people can find it there.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, it'd be great if we just stick any resources in the chat, because it's all sounds super useful. Fran, did you have one as well? I know you've got links to resources. I'm just going to pop them in the chat now. So these are the dynamic.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Yeah, I was just going to say I'm having a bit of trouble accessing the chat, but Christina did a plug, so I'm also going to do one. But the Dynamic Earth Online portal has got so much stuff on it that we've been developing through lockdown. That was kind of our way of disseminating activities while we couldn't see people in person. But there's a section that's all linked to climate and sustainability activities. So most of the time there's kind of background information, an activity and the resources you'd need to carry it out, and then like a little bit of a plenary. So some really nice kind of like ready-made things. Just to make your life a bit easier.
Brilliant. So that's all in the chat now. I also had, when I was just researching for the theme of learning for sustainability, there's some really nice Wakelets. I don't know if anyone's ever used that. That is somewhere where you can collate lots of resources together. So I'll pop the link to those in the chat as well. And there's loads of really good looking resources there. So I'll just pop those in now too. Did anyone else have any questions? We've got time for one last quick wee question if anyone had anything else. Nope, looks like we are all out of questions for the moment. Well, I'll just wrap up our session today then. So hopefully you can see my presentation again. We will skip past that. And we've done some reflecting. So just to plug a couple of young STEM leader events, we've got the next tutor session, Tutor Assessor Connections, will be on the 7th of March at 4 o'clock, and it's going to be on the theme of British Science Week, which will be coming up a couple of weeks after that. So we'll be discussing all the different plans that your different young STEM leaders have got for the upcoming British Science Week. We've got a Kickstart session on the 9th of March. So if you've done the Tutor Assessor training, but you've not managed to deliver the programme yet, then that's a great session to get you kick-started on getting the programme delivered. We have got a couple of different opportunities for your young STEM leaders coming up. Speaking of British Science Week, there's an opportunity for your young people to get involved in an event with STEM ambassadors, where they can be involved in interviewing STEM ambassadors that have different careers, and they would be involved in organising the event and fielding questions and all that sort of thing. So if you want to get involved in that, then just give me a shout. There's also an opportunity with Scottish Apprentice Week that's coming up in March as well, and again your young STEM leaders would have the opportunity to interview apprentices this time on their experiences. So again, let me know if any of your young people fancy getting involved in that. All of this information is shared on our Teams channel. I think Gail's going to put a link into the chat on how you can access that. If you're not involved in the Teams channel, then that's a really good way to hear about all the latest stuff for young STEM leader. Oh, and there was one more event I meant to mention. We've got verification events coming up as well, and that non-formal is on the 2nd of March and formal is on the 3rd of March as well. So lots of exciting stuff coming up, but that's us just about come to the end of our session today. Thank you so much to all of our speakers. It was so great to hear all your different experiences and for you to share all the amazing resources that you've got as well. Hopefully that's going to be super useful for everyone. And thank you everyone for coming along to the session today to hear our speakers, and we'll hopefully see you along for the next one as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Laura. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm also struggling to find the chat, so I think I'll just have to email you over the link if that's okay.
No worries. I'll put it in the Teams channel, Christina, and then everyone can hopefully get it.
Magic. Cheers. Thank you very much then. See you later.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you. I just want to say a quick thanks. Oh, he's there. And you just switched on my screen, Jamie. I'm just going to say a quick thank you to you, because the last Tutor Connections that I was on in the summer, you brought up Heart of Midlothian Digital Innovation Team. And we are now in connection with them, because I've got one of my young STEM leaders is a senior girl who has a scholarship for football. And she's going off to America sort of at the end of next year, all going well. So she is now with a couple of the boys going to be working with Heart of Midlothian to kind of introduce digital technology and football skills to our girls football kind of team, and try and show that actually there's like a digital side and nutrition side and data analyst side and stuff. So they're going to be coming to work with us. So thank you very much for
That's so good to hear. The power of networking.
the power of networking. Absolutely.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It was good, and hopefully it'll be a bit more of a, even when Brooke goes off to do her football, hopefully it'll become a bit more of a long-term thing for the PE teachers and things, because they're quite interested to see that side of stuff. So
I really appreciate that
them
feedback.
in football.
And it's good to put a name to a face. We've spoken on the phone quite a lot, so it's nice to finally see you. I'm
going to have lots of questions actually. I'm trying to do this, not just now, but I'm trying to do this level 6. And you know, I am such a harsh marker. And even though I did like the tutor assessor stuff, I was like 2 years ago, I feel like I just want to fail everybody on their comments. Like, no, that's not good enough. No, that's not good enough. So I'm probably going to be sending stuff like, would you accept this as a pass or not?
No, send it across to me. And if you need more support, one of our artists can have a look over like a couple of blogs. And we're also now we're producing a kind of understanding standards style package for young sim leader, which I can see you smiling. I think you will enjoy that. So that's coming out very soon. The YSL6 one is like written and ready to go. So it's just getting branded up at the moment, and we'll be able to share that with you. So very happy to look over any of that evidence. And one thing that actually you might be interested in, your former colleague, Dawn Bedard, we're now working with her to produce an IOP award for young sim leaders for this year as well, which is great. So lots of links with bonus and links.
I'm not surprised she's got IOP involved. She was always like driving that here, and then she's off to obviously Lithgow for a while. So that's here. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Great.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
See you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too.